Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Charity Charge Show. This is Grayson Harris, and today we are pleased to be joined by David Gaspar. He is the CEO of the Bail Project, and they are doing incredible work, across the United States, really providing free bail for a variety of people, and they're actually really close to a new milestone. David, thank you so much, for coming on the show, and thanks for being here today.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. Happy to be here.
Well, I would love if you could give a little bit of background and some context, for myself and our listeners in terms of the work that you are doing and really where this need is coming from.
Yeah, so the starting point is Robin Steinberg. She was our founder and original CEO. She came from a background of being a public defender in New York City, and she just saw this crazy need for individuals to be able to be positioned to fight their cases from a position of freedom. So that was kind of the nucleus of the Bail Project. And so how this has evolved over the years is Robin went out there, she continued to show the need as well as the value that this particular work adds. And what ended up happening is she found some interested funders that really stood behind the work, put the money, to be able to scale the Bail Project nationally. And since then we've been opening up sites across the nation. But we've also been, really trying to understand what is adding value, what is actually contributing to individuals successfully returning to court, what is helping individuals stabilize in the community. And we're, now positioned to not only do reports as we have this year. We've released two reports. One, the false promise of bail, but then the other one, beyond bail. I'm talking about where cash bail reform has actually been implemented and what that journey has looked like for those particular states and jurisdictions, as well as the learning lessons that we've been able to derive from those implementations. So the Bail Project is just really, truly standing behind what this work means, not just because we believe in the humanitarian crisis we're addressing, but also the value that we're adding back into our communities.
Incredible. In terms of those lessons that you have learned and how you are serving this, community, can you explain a little bit more into what that problem that you're addressing is and kind of where it stems from?
Yeah, absolutely. So across America, we have over 500,000 people each and every day stuck in jail simply because they can't afford the price for their freedom. And what that means is that a court has assigned a cash bail to them that is beyond their financial ability to pay for. So what the Bail Project does is we step in and we put up that money at no charge or expense to the individual. And upon release, we support them with court reminders, transportation assistance, helping them in ways of either identifying or connecting to available resources when and where needed. And I want to emphasize the when and where needed. A lot of times we help people get out of jail. They already have a house, they already have a job, they already have connections, they already have stability, but that is always in jeopardy if we leave them in jail. Now they can't work. Now they lost their job. Now they can't pay the rent. Now they don't have a house. And so what we do is try to preserve their ability to be stable and to be contributors in their communities and their households. So the Bell Project is just really built on the foundation of helping people come home, retaining what they've already worked really, really hard for, while positioning them to fight their cases in a partnership with their public defender or with their legal counsel. So if they have evidence that proves their innocence or that allows them to be, have a stronger argument for whatever happened, in their particular defense. So we do that. That is the core of what we do, bring people home. But to the studying part, we are really intentional about our commitment to giving people court reminders. So we do understand that not everybody has transportation. And we recently just did a study showing that the average person that we've been able to provide support for lives a median distance of 9 miles away from the courthouse. And in many cases, there's not public transportation that will get people from their homes to the courthouse. And so now you're asking people to make this journey either by foot or to try to find a ride but all those things are very unreliable, especially in the moment. And so we've been able to do that study. We've also been able to provide Lyft rides that it's a crazy amount of mileage that we've been able to contribute over the years in our partnership with Lyft to be able to get people to and from court, to and from their pretrial hearings, to and from their court hearings, as well as any other service providers that they may need along the way. And so for us, we do that legwork, and then we go out there and we try to show people what the value is. And there was actually a recent report by the Science Advances that came out, I believe just this month, and it was talking about court reminders and how court reminders in and of themselves can reduce failure to appear by 20%, which means now bench warrants are reduced by 20%, which means that now
Yeah,
people are not getting rearrested by 20%. And it's just a simple thing of giving a reminder that, hey, you have a court date. And we see that kind of just happening across the spectrum. My eye doctor does, text reminders now like,
yeah.
hey, don't forget you got an appointment next month or, in the next week. Dentists do it. And it's just those little things that we take for granted, but they have such a significant impact in people's lives.
Incredible. If you could share, what is some of the biggest misunderstandings around kind of the existing system, and what are some of the barriers that you're running into in terms of whenever you're talking to people in the public about this?
Yeah, I would say one of the biggest mental barriers is we've been programmed through what we've seen on Perry Mason and Law and Order. And there's like people walk into this courtroom and there's this full, robust process of there being a defense lawyer, a state lawyer, a judge, and they're examining the evidence and they're making this determination based on facts. And that is just not how the real process works. In most cases, people will walk before a judge, and within 60 to 120 seconds, so 1 to 2 minutes, their life is being determined there. And there's no evaluation of the details of the case. There's no evaluation of the facts of the individual, where they're positioned, what they have in jeopardy, plus what they have in their favor. And so these courts are making these determinations usually based off of what is called a bail schedule. And that is, if this person is alleged to have committed this crime, then their bail should be this amount. And what that process does is it eliminates what we fundamentally hold as a value in America, and that is the presumption of innocence. Once I have to put a price on your freedom, that means I no longer believe you to be innocent. And so, what we advocate for, and what the biggest mental barrier that we're trying to break through is let's actually see that process come to life. Let's actually have an evaluation of facts. If there was enough evidence to arrest, to take somebody's freedom away from them, deny them of their liberty, then there should be enough facts to be able to put in front of that courtroom and allow them to make a determination if that person poses a direct threat to somebody, to the community, or if they don't. And put that on record. Put that as something that now we can go back and reflect upon and say, was this the right call or not? And if not, what more information could we have asked for in that particular moment? So that's the first barrier that we're really trying to break through. The second barrier that we're trying to break through is this fear mongering behind safety. And report after report continues to come out showing and proving that bail reform doesn't cause our communities to be less safe. What's happened in Illinois, the early reports show that violent crime has reduced. There was a recent study done, just released this month by John Jay College, that shows in New York an assessment over 50 months, so just a little over 4 years. They studied a group of people who were either assigned a bail or were remanded, meaning they were kept in jail throughout the duration of their case, and those who actually were just released, on their own recognizance. So they were released without a bail or any conditions. Proved that that population group that was just released had lower rearrest rates, did not actually have
Mm.
as significant needs as the population that was kept in jail or had to come up with money. And it really just boils down to common sense. The longer you keep somebody in jail, the more their lives deteriorate, which make them more desperate, makes them more needy, puts them in a position of desperation that we just can't imagine on a daily basis. But also allowing somebody to come home, retaining their job, retaining their housing, retaining their connections to their families allows them to be stronger and to be able to move forward quickly.
Thank you so much for that context and for answering that. I would love if you could give some context. You've been at the organization for over 6 years, and I know you're on this new milestone of serving almost 40,000 people across the country. Is there a story that stands out to you from maybe, it's hard to pick one in 40,000, right? But is there one that, stands out?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for that. Yes, I've been here for quite a while. I actually started as a bail disruptor. So I started getting people home. And so I always have those earlier memories of the people that I was able to directly have an impact on their life. But there's actually a more recent story, of a mother who literally had a traffic ticket and she moved from that state to another state, thought everything was resolved. She didn't have anything outstanding, just kind of completely, left her mind and got arrested. And her new state, her new home state, and then had to be taken back to the state that
Mm.
she moved from
Of
for
course.
a traffic violation and had to go through that process. And so we were able to bail her out and to be able to provide the services there. But what gets lost in that story is one, I think people immediately are drawn to, wait, a traffic violation? We're talking about something that a lot of us get every day and we're not taken to jail for. And so to imagine your life being upended and being able to be incarcerated for months, to be transferred to another state, to be, there for months as well. But what gets lost in that story is the fact that she had a young daughter and she was a single mother and she was the only person working in the household. And now you have this bigger ecosystem of what happens to her daughter. Who's going to be able to take care of her? Is this mother going to lose custody of her daughter? It's like the ripple effects throughout a family unit for something that literally could have been resolved by mail is just so bizarre. And those are the stories that I think people need to hear more about because those stories happen every day, time
Mm,
and time again, but they get buried, they get masked. Once again, going back to that fear mongering, we take the outlier story and we turn that into that must be everybody. And that's just farthest from the truth. Or
mm,
furthest from the truth. So I just want to make sure that, when I think about those stories, those are those impact stories that I'm like, I wish more people knew. I wish more people understood that not only did this happen to this mother and tear her family apart,
mm.
but it could actually happen to you completely just as something that you spaced off. Oh, I got this traffic ticket and I forgot to pay the fine. But now you have a warrant out for your arrest and you're unaware of it.
Again, thank you for that, context. And I think it's important to understand the spectrum of, people that y'all are helping serve and support. But you've been there for like we mentioned, over 6 years, and you started, on the ground, boots on the ground. But you've transitioned, to this role as CEO in the last 2 years. What is a piece of advice that you would give yourself, as you were stepping into this role as CEO, 2 years ago, and to, help yourself out?
If I could go back in time and give myself some advice, I would tell myself to appreciate the accumulation of the work. When you start off on the ground, I came into it, and I know a lot of my team members come into it because they have a heart for the people. We really want to be here for the humanitarian crisis that's happening in our jails. Being incarcerated is horrible in and of itself, but then the conditions of those jails make it that much worse.
Mm,
And so, we come into it with that heart, that passion, that focus, and each day brings us into a new story that we were part of. And we sometimes have the ability to get lost and coming back in and motivating ourselves with what is the direct human impact. As CEO, you have to look at what is the national impact, what is the state impact, what is the community impact. And so you have to approach the work from what good are we adding, not just to an individual life or family unit or to a community, but what good are we adding back into this process? And what are we advocating for that we understand and can articulate well enough? And so when we talk about the work that the Bell Project's doing, us, putting out these reports this year is us saying, no, we know this work well enough. And we also know in many cases, we're the only ones collecting this information. So
mm.
we are the best advocates for showing people why this matters. And so for me, if I could go back 2 years ago, I'll say get a running start on that. Come in, make it happen. It took me a learning curve to kind of say, okay, where do I fit in and what is our potential and ability as an organization? But if I could have came in and hit the ground running with what is that larger impact? What is the value add that we believe that we can prove? I believe I would have got a much stronger start.
Oh, I really appreciate that. And as you've now looked to these reports that y'all are creating, how are you communicating, this value that you are bringing, to your donors, to your partners? What does that look like? And what is your strategy around that?
Yeah, so we have multiple fronts on that strategy. One, build the relationships with media in order to get the word out there so that we can balance the conversation. As I said, fear mongering is one of the easiest things to do because it taps into this innate emotion that we have of being scared of the boogeyman. And if the lights are off, there's
Yep.
something under the bed or in the closet. And really, what we want to do is shine a light on that and say, no, actually, there is no boogeyman, but there are facts.
Mm,
there is a reality here that we can reflect upon and say what's working and what's not working. How can we improve the system? And so our position is always, what can we do to strengthen the judicial process? Not we believe it should be torn down, burned to the ground, and we should abandon it. No, just how do we strengthen it? How do we take what's in TV and what our perception of it is and make
mm,
that the reality that we all stand behind and we all agree upon? So for us, these reports are just our way of being able to branch it out. So we work with media to try to balance the narrative. But then we're also working with colleges. We're trying to make sure that what we're putting out there also is seen as credible. It's also seen as a
Mm,
scientific approach and not just an emotional one, not just, oh, but you don't understand the babies that are being, no, yes, that is part of the story, but that is not part of the study.
mm,
And so what we want to do is really break through with those text reminders, those court reminders. What is the impact of that having on the people that we serve? And then how are we seeing that, play out across other jurisdictions as well? What is the impact of giving and providing somebody a ride to court? What is the impact in the ability of when you know somebody has child or children and you know that they're not allowed to bring their children to court because that just is not allowed? How do you help them set up and advance childcare?
mm.
How do you then provide a ride to drop the children off at the childcare and then get that person to court successfully and return them back? Like all those things are elements that we can capture to show that if we do these little things, so these aren't the big things. This isn't, send dog the bounty hunter to their house, kick down the door. And, it's like, no, a simple reminder, a simple ride, just the ability to show somebody that, they have the ability of their own to be able to successfully return to court changes the narrative so much. And so we're getting out there, partnering with colleges, we're partnering with media, but then we're also, and we always have, so I want to be really clear about this. We are sitting down with judges. We're sitting down with jail administrations. We're
Mm.
sitting down with county execs, with public defenders, with DAs across America, and we're sharing this information with them as well. And we continue to do that because we understand that they are the ones on the ground that they have to believe in it first and foremost. We can change a law at the state level, but if the practices don't change at the local jurisdictional level, then the problem still persists. And then people point back at the law saying the law broke it, the law broke it. It's like the law never actually got implemented. So it never had a chance
Yeah.
to succeed. But because of the perception of law change, everybody has to be doing it, then they think that the problem is bigger than what it really is.
Understood. And we were talking impact, right?
Yep.
And on that note, you're about to reach a new milestone of these 40,000 members served. Can you tell me a little bit more about what the future looks like for the Bill Project as we look to the end of the year and into future years as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the question. And yes, I am extremely excited to be able to sit here today and say that we are literally knocking on the door of our 40,000th client served. And that means so much. For us, it's a bittersweet milestone. And the reason why I say this, like, I'm happy to know that we've contributed to that many lives in a short period of time. But we also have almost a one-third dismissal rate for everyone that we've been able to serve.
Mm,
Now, when you stop and process 40,000 and one-third, we're talking about over 10,000 people were in jail unnecessarily. It means that every day that they served, the process of being arrested, everything that they potentially lost as far as a job or housing was all for no reason. And so one of the things that we want to do in our celebration, for the remainder of this year, but also bringing awareness to going forward is we have to stop the process of wrongfully arresting people, wrongfully putting them in that position. And it's not to say that mistakes won't happen. But when we can say that out of 40,000 people, 10,000 plus of them have been wrongfully arrested, and we know that there's over 500,000 people sitting in our jails right now, if we span that out, then we have to assume that a large portion of them are also in there unnecessarily. The reason why that matters is because when the system talks about itself, it always refers to how overwhelmed they are and how they don't have the time, and they don't have the ability, and they don't have the resources. And it's like, well, if we stop putting people in there that are clogging the machine up, then guess what? The machine can run smoother. The machine can now do the things that make it stronger, that
mm.
make it more accountable, that allow people to see with transparency what's really happening and not happening. And so for us, that's one of the things that we want to continue to shine a light on. But I will say, going forward, we now have 6+ years of bailout work underneath our belt, support work underneath our belt. We're going to continue releasing publications. We have 2 more in the pipeline that we're going to be releasing soon. We're going to continue to put the word out there. We're going to continue to show people that we are not only paying attention, but we're also holding ourselves accountable to being detailed about the work that we do. And at the end of the day, I feel like that is going to have its place in this conversation of what happens next.
Incredible. And David, how can our audience, get more involved with your organization?
The easiest way, go to bailproject.org, click on our website link. You'll find more information about us. You'll find more information about our publications, our client stories. You'll also see how to support us. And so please go to our website, check it out. see what we're doing, and we're constantly adding to it. So there's always going to be something new to find.
Amazing. David, thank you so much for coming on and sharing more about the, incredible work that you're doing with our audience and for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity.